We continue our story on Manticore Island. And I'm going to say it's just been a few days, like before the camp fam actually arrives there. And we would pan over to a laboratory, and there's a lot more scientists in this timeline because they've been preparing. They have other dinosaurs being transported from Isla Sorna to this island and even Isla Nublar. And this is where we see a container. We see Omega actually getting up, looking around and wondering, okay, where am I? Where's my family? The heck is going on here? And so he actually walks over to a glass where he visibly can't see, but he's actually intelligent enough to know that he's being watched. And obviously by Daniel Kahn and, Cash. Yeah, that jerk anyway. And Daniel says he's a remarkable specimen. And Cash says, indeed he is. I wonder how much he can take. And this is where he simply tries to electrocute him. But Omega isn't phased by this. He kind of just looks around like, okay, that, I guess that tickled, but what was that supposed to do? And while Daniel is like, well, that's remarkable. Usually some dinosaurs buckle at the first extent. And Cash doesn't like this, like at all. He doesn't get, no thrill of torturing the animals out of this and stuff. And he tries it again and again, even at higher voltages, but it does nothing. And this is where Dr. Turner simply snatches the pad away from him and tells him that's enough. And so, kind of understanding what's going on, or maybe giving some semblance of it, Omega decides to gently show his strength. And this is where he nudges the glass a little bit and kind of scares them. So Dr. Turner actually lets him out into the T-Rex paddock where he meets Big Edie and Little Edie. Now, Little Edie is obviously scared because, again, Omega does not look like a regular T-Rex. So he kind of comes off as a little bit monstrous to them. And Big Edie's obviously on guard, and so actually roars at him to kind of back off. So Omega makes himself look a little bit smaller, as again he is quite friendly to even other dinosaurs, and he kind of just backs off and then slinks away into his own part of the woods. And so this is where we will actually see the camp fam the next day actually arrive. Now, some of the events do go the same, but when we get to the more jungle-like era, it's a lot more shared. There's Pierce-the-Kentrosaurus, there's the Raptors, and then there's obviously the Rexes. And this is where Brooklyn actually sees something pull up behind Darius, and he says, Darius, you may want to turn around. And this is where the rest of them actually jump a little bit, and so does Darius as he slowly turns. And he kind of like closes his eyes a little bit, like saying, please don't eat me, please don't eat me, please don't eat me. And then he turns around to see it's Omega. And Omega has like a little bit of a smile on his face, or the best smile a dinosaur can manage. And this is where, Darius actually runs up and hugs the dude's snout, and he's actually happy to see him, while Omega's obviously happy to see his more, adoptive human parent, and actually just nuzzles him, a little bit. And this is where he tries to go off to drink with the rest of them. However, he then gets shot by Brads. And these guys have a lot more lethal doses than the original because, again, Cash is the one who really made these guys, or semi-made them, and he actually starts utilizing the Brads to use lethal forces of electrocution, like more than a city's power grid, I would say. And this actually does begin to hurt Omega here. Like, it actually starts causing him to buck and turn. And then this is where one of them actually shoots him in the chest, and it actually causes his heart to stop, causing him to keel over. This is when a Brad actually goes over and begins to extract some of the DNA, or at least three of them actually go to extract the DNA of Omega. And Omega is sort of like on the ground at the moment, non-responsive. And Darius is very worried right now as Omega is not responding. And he's even pleading for him to get up as the Brads are simply taking the DNA strands, and some of them are leaving. However, this is where Little Edie runs over and begins chomping on any of the Brads that are more so still in the area. And then she begins to like nudge Omega to get up, practically begging him to come on, please, please, please don't die. You've been such a nice friend. Please get up, please get up. And then Omega just simply, seems to absorb some type of energy from the ground and then just gets up like, oh, Jesus, what the heck just happened? Hold on, give me a sec. All right. Okay. And then the others are looking like, um, what the heck just happened? And this is where Darius simply thinks about it and he's like, oh my God, that's right. The immortal gene. He can't die. And he just, well, I guess evolved to, and this is where Brooklyn simply chimes in, his heart being electrocuted. I mean, what kind of force did they even use? To which Cash says that was more than enough electricity to power an entire city, and he's still alive. And this is where Omega now understands that, okay, this was his fault, and then charges at him. However, Cash simply ducks into a door that Omega simply rams through and kind of dents at the moment. Like, he straight up crushes that door more than the Spinosaurus could. So it's like, oh shoot, he's that strong. However, this is where Daniel Kahn comes in, and well, a lot of the interactions in Camp Cretaceous happen the same. However, with more scientists, and thus I would definitely say more security. This also means that everything can go a bit more smoothly along with Cash and Dr. Turner. So this means he doesn't try to kill his own coworker. Like, what the dude? And well, Brooklyn and Kenji do start dating, and I'm just gonna be kind of honest here, I don't think that was the like best decision for the creators. I kind of felt like Brooklyn and Darius had a lot more chemistry than Brooklyn and Kenji, and it was just kind of like out of nowhere. So it kind of is what it is, but again, something still happened. And so we kind of see Omega go off with Big Edie and Little Edie, and Darius is actually happy about this because, Omega actually has more friends, and who knows, maybe he'll start another family. However, Omega does kind of keep himself distant as he does miss his wife and children. Now, some of the events of Camp Cretaceous are simply cut. There are more people here. There are more positive people here. And well, I would probably say the kids don't go home just yet because, again, Daniel still wants to convince his son to join the family business. And so this means Darius does spend a lot more time around the T-Rexes because, again, Omega can kind of guarantee his safety. And this is where Dr. Turner also notes his behavior pattern. While Cash is just simply like mean mugging and hating through, the security visors and stuff like that. So Cash is kind of just being like, a D1 hater right now. And then we also there's more interactions with Big Edie, Little Edie, and Omega. And, they're kind of all just getting along greatly, as well as Pierce and Omega. We see a little bit of interactions with them where they're actually just like chilling out, hanging, drinking water, or maybe playing a little bit. Same with the Raptors as well. However, Dr. Turner just can't really, I guess you could say communicate with him in a way to actually understand why he does have a little bit of a depression spurt. And to which Darius does state that he did have a family on Isla Sorna, and well, hopefully that's what the next shipment is. Now, the very next day, we would get, or sorry, not the next day, I would probably say the next week because I would give them that much time. We would actually see a ship pull up from Isla Nublar. And well, Daniel, overseeing it with a lot of security and a few scientists as well, does state that this is the transportation that he's been looking for. And then the crate actually opens, and what we see, 3 baby T-Rexes come out along with Rexy. Well, Rexy's kind of sleeping at the moment, so she's not really where her children had just really ran off. And this is where one of the Brags actually comes forward and injects Rexy with a mind control or a tag device. And this is where Rexy gets up, chomps on it, and then simply thrashes it, with her children looking at her and wondering if this thing is food. And this is where we actually see the children, this being Bloop, Crunchy, and Revan. Bloop is a female, Crunchy is also a female, and Revan is the male. And this is where Rexy actually gives a triumphant roar to where, she kind of feels dominant over the kill, but again realizes it's non edible. However, back in the T-Rex paddock, this actually is heard by Omega, and he's busy eating, but he simply stops, looks to the area that the roar came from, and simply runs off. And he runs off full speed to the point where he bursts through his paddock and actually roars at Rexy and his children. So basically, both sides see each other and they immediately run to each other, with Omega actually, running past Darius, Kenji, Brooklyn, Sam, Yaz, Ben, all the kids, all the scientists, and all the doctors, and actually gets close to Rexy, and they both nuzzle each other in a heartwarming reunion here. So it's very good that, it's a bit more romantical, it's a bit more loving, a lot more caring. We actually see that Omega's around the same size as her, and this is where he actually leans down to nuzzle all three of his children, with Crunchy obviously being the one to playfully bite her father's nose, and Bloop and Revan actually do join in on a little bit. And so everything honestly feels happy, with Darius saying now this is what he really needed. He needed his family to get out of these depression spurts or whatever. However, this is where it kind of pans over to Cass saying, yeah, he did need his family to feel a lot better about himself, didn't he? And that's what we're going to leave it off here, you guys. Please comment down below, like and subscribe and share with your friends, and I'll see you guys for the next part.